Hey everyone, my name's Josie Derrick with the Mathematics Department here at Boise State. In our last problem of the month, we explored some connections between math and graphic design. To tell us a little bit more about connections between math and graphic design, I spoke with Eryn Pierce. Eryn works at Boise State as an assistant professor of graphic design in the Department of Art, Design, and Visual Studies. She has a bachelor's degree in biology, as well as her bachelor's and master's in graphic design.
Could you share a bit about how you see or use math in graphic design?
Yeah, I guess I'll preface with I used to know a lot of math, and so I feel very intimidated in this conversation because it feels like it's all gone. But in reflecting, yes, we do use a lot of math. I mean, vectors themselves, which is what we work with on our design tools on the computer, use math. But we have a platform which makes it easier for us to kind of ignore the numbers side and but use these beautiful tools to help us create design different like logos or vector art or icons. And so I would say, for example, in my class, when I'm teaching people how to make icons or graphics for a logo, I'll have them upload a sketch of what they want to create. Like they've gone through the whole creative process, they figured out what conceptually they want to create. And so they'll take a picture of that, put it into the program, and then almost like tracing on top, they will take different shapes from the tools offered. So they usually have triangles and circles, um, squares, and you can really get a precise outline of what you're trying to get to be a vector more easily than just trying to do it from scratch. And so I asked them primarily circles, I would say, because they have that organic shape. They're able to layer those and then merge them together and start to form kind of the picture in a more clean and precise way versus just outlining with their vector tool or pen tool. And so that's how, for one, we can use math in our actual design of a logo or graphic. I would say the reason we do that is because it is more pleasing to the eye when we have these simple shapes and curves. Um, there's just something in psychology that we're drawn to, things that are geometric or balanced, and so I really encourage my students to think about it through that lens, like not getting rid of their initial like sketch or idea, but how do you like refine it to really make it feel right to the eye. Um, so there's that example. And then as we progress in the program, we also introduce grids. And so grids essentially are just rows and columns. And we map that out onto a page or several pages, which we would do in a book. And they're essentially the backbone of how we might organize content on a page. And so when you're designing a book, you'll have maybe hundreds of pages of content that you have to feed into a layout for a publication. And we don't just design every page as we go. We really want to set out the whole framing of the book before we start implementing content. And how we do that is through grids. And so maybe we have several grids. Some grids will support maybe different types of content or chapter content versus maybe it's like the preface and the conclusion. And so we set up these grids, and I like to think about them as like the blueprint or the like bones kind of a house. And before we can put the walls on, the color, the paint, we have to do that foundation work so that we have something strong that will hold up, that can support a reader's um, like movement through each piece of content.
Just for a last little bit, like I know at the beginning you mentioned like being a little nervous to talk about math, but then reflecting and being like, oh yeah, I am using this. I was wondering if
Yes.
you have any advice for someone who maybe isn't as confident in math, for yeah, like how it can still be
Mhm.
used even if you're not as confident in it.
I think when you start framing it as math, it can be intimidating and like shut your brain down. If you are just open to using it and exploring with it to create, like, I think that's a switch in your mind that is really important to turn on. Because as you start learning a new tool or tech or thing, just like trying it and applying it, I think is the best way to get over that fear of something that maybe you don't completely understand. Because I think there is something about embodied learning that, I don't know, experiential learning with these things that puts it into context for you, that doesn't feel as scary as a bunch of numbers on a page. Yeah, where you have a test or quiz. Um, so just trying, I would say, to think about it from a different perspective as like a tool and something helpful rather than something scary, and that you can't use, because you can't. You definitely can't. I can do it, you can't.